Hi everyone, my name is Sleigh and welcome to HustleSZN. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about all the books that I DNF'd this year, or at least the ones that I remember. I don't actually track what I DNF, I just delete it from my Goodreads and it's off into the abyss. This video is inspired by one of the Bookmas topics from Haley and Bookland's channel, so I will leave that down below, but I assume if you know my channel, you already know about Bookmas as well. Just before I start, let's do like a mini discussion on DNFing and just like my stance on this controversial topic. I'm like super chill DNFing a book. If I'm not vibing with it, if it's not fun, I will stop. You know, a lot of people talk about going into reading slumps, like if they push themselves or just essentially not wanting to read. And the thing is that like reading is literally the only thing that I can count on to be fun almost all the time. Like it's how I de-stress, it's how I spend the day. So I have to be doing that act. I don't really care what I'm reading. I don't really care if I'm finishing a book that I started or picking up a new one. It's just that I like to read. So if I'm not liking what I'm reading, that doesn't stop me from reading. It just means like I'll put this down, but then I'll just move on and read something else. And so I'm the type of person who like reads tons of books at once, but I'm usually focusing on one or two that I actively like, and then the rest I've kind of read halfway and put them down and eventually never pick up, and so I've DNF'd them. The other thing too is I do feel like this year in particular I DNF'd quite a lot of books. I'm positive I've DNF'd more than what I've written down, but part of it I think was because I really challenged myself this year to read outside of my comfort zone. I actually don't think I read many typical YA high fantasies that I like to read. I don't think I read any books about assassins this year. I can definitely tell that I've stepped out because like all my favorite books this year are contemporaries and I am not a huge contemporary reader. Aside from me just stepping out of my comfort zone, I think another big component to how much I DNF things was definitely starting residency. I felt like, at least in the second half of this year, just the fatigue, like both mentally and physically, that comes along with working as much as I was contributed a lot to it. So if I wasn't liking a book, I was a lot less inclined to push through or to keep going. So without further ado, let's talk about some of the books that I DNF'd. So I'll move over so that we have space for my books. This isn't in the order that they were DNF'd, it was just in the order that I remembered them. But so one of the books that I DNF'd this year was Becoming by Michelle Obama. I think I got like 4 chapters into this one. I did like it. When I was reading the chapters, I felt like the beginning and middle of the chapters weren't really that interesting. Like there'd be a lot of build up to whatever story she was getting to. And then like maybe the last few paragraphs of the chapter would kind of have this like closing statement that could be really impactful. For example, I think within the first couple chapters, there's that whole metaphor she uses of her playing piano and how she didn't feel comfortable playing the newer piano because she was like, I don't even recognize these keys, like they're so clean. But it took me so long to get there, and yeah, it didn't help. Again, like I don't like nonfiction, so like I knew going into it that this is not my jam at all, but I'm gonna try. I wasn't having fun, so I stopped. And then the other nonfiction book that I also DNF'd was like The 5 Levels of Leadership or something like that by John Maxwell. This one was less so because I wasn't interested and more so because I kind of got what I needed out of it. So I stopped after level 2 of the 5 levels because I was 100% not even at level 1 yet, like in my current life. So I didn't bother to read the next levels because I thought they were beyond what I would need anyways. So that was that. The next 2 books that I DNF'd this year were high fantasy, and I specifically wanted to get into more adult fantasy. Earlier this year I read N.K. Jemisin, which it was definitely hard to get through, but I still liked it. After that I thought I would try Eye of the World, and I think the other one's called The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. And so both of those was me trying to get into adult fantasy, and I'm not gonna lie, I quit on both of them. I don't even think like I got 25% into either of them, not even 20, like maybe 10%. It was just too much. There's so much to learn, there's so much to push through, the pace is slow. It's not like, I guess a lot of fantasies in my opinion are world building heavy in the beginning and then get into characters, and I'm like, I just wish like you just just like get me to like the character and then help me learn about the world. I just wish they would take that approach a bit more. That was it. I think it was A, complicated, and B, I didn't love it, so I just stopped. I think another problem with both of those is that I opted to listen to the audiobook as opposed to reading the physical copy, and I've definitely learned that when it comes to fantasy, that is just not a good option. There's so many words that aren't even really English, and all the names are, you know, not ones you're familiar with, and yeah, it's just not a great idea. Also, like, I find that I pay less attention when I'm listening to an audiobook, so just inherently I feel like I'm more likely to DNF an audiobook than I am a physical book. Whereas like with a book, like if I lose focus, it's not like I lose where I am. Does that make sense? Like I'll just stop reading and close the book, do whatever I'm doing, and come back. But with the audiobook, it's so easy to just have it on in the background, and then, you know, some time passes by and you have no idea where you are or what you missed or what happened and who this new character is. And so yeah. Moving forward, if I'm gonna read high fantasy or adult fantasy, I will definitely try to read the physical copies. Another book that I DNF'd this year was Heartless by Marissa Meyer. I read it based off of a video that I saw on Olivia's channel, which I'll link down below. In general, like I like to read books based off of other people's recommendations, and this one was more of like a whim read. Like I had no plans of reading it because I'm not really a fan of Alice in Wonderland to begin with, so like I knew going in that this wouldn't be a book that I would like that much. I was gonna drive home, and usually before I drive home I kind of check what audiobooks are available on the library app. That one seemed to be like the most interesting of what was available, so I was like, I'll give it a go. I think I almost got halfway, if not like maybe 40% of the way in. It was alright, but it wasn't like good enough for me to want to finish it after my drive was over. There's not much more to why I stopped that one. Another one that I DNF'd was Queen of Air and Darkness by Cassandra Clare. This one I actually kind of have a whole video talking about like why even bother trying to like Cassandra Clare's books. There's no nostalgia there for me, as there are for so many other people. Anyways, I really liked the show Shadowhunters. And I think while that was airing, I wanted to continue being in that world. Now that we've had our finale, I like had no more desire to keep going. So I got like halfway through that one as well. And maybe one day, but probably not. Especially because I know I have no intention of continuing the series, even though there's a Persian girl apparently on the cover. I think I'm just done with that phase of my life and we're gonna move on to bigger and better things. So the next book on my list is Next Year in Havana. I forget who the author is, but I saw this book on Liz's channel, which I can, if I find the video, I'll link it down below. She's part Cuban, I believe, if not full. She read this book, really liked it, and I thought I'd try it. Again, I tried the audiobook and it was okay. It was easy to follow. It wasn't that interesting. It was a very old school romance type book, which just isn't up my alley. I tried it for what it was worth, and then I gave up again around the 25% mark. The next book that I DNF'd was Three Dark Crowns by Kendare Blake. This one, again, no reason for me stopping it. I just wasn't loving it, so I stopped it. It wasn't even bad. I don't know. I think something else more interesting came along, and so I put this one down and never got back to it. And I don't know for sure whether or not I have plans to get back to it. So for now, I'm going to consider it a DNF. The last three books, technically, they're not 100% in the DNF basket just yet. They're books that I've somewhat put down because I'm reading something else that I'm enjoying more, but that I still have intentions of finishing, so they're not official DNFs, if you will. So the first one is The Foxhole Court. Again, I'm listening to the audiobook, and I'm like so-so. The thing is, the people who like this book like it so much that I want to give it a full chance, and I do want to finish it all the way to the end. But part of me is like, if I was gonna love it, like, shouldn't I love it by now? I feel like this one, I'm also maybe 30% of the way into the book, and I don't know, it's not as, like, character and angsty, and it's just not at all what I expected. It is about a lot of broken teenagers, and maybe I can see how themes of found family might appear in the book, but for now, it just is. So I might try to finish that one still, but I have a feeling that I won't like it nearly as much as the people who do like it. The other two is Harry Potter 4. I'm technically in the middle of, so I'm hoping to still finish that. So I started the reread when I knew that I was going to Harry Potter Land earlier this year. After I visited there, I just didn't have as much motivation to try to finish the series, but I feel like it's been so long since I've reread them, and everyone always talks about how you can see how much pre-planning was put into the whole series when you reread it because there's so much foreshadowing. So I definitely do want to finish my reread. I just I don't know when, and there's so many new good books, you know, that it's hard for me to like sit down and be like, yeah, let me finish the last 3 books, which are all super long. And the last one is The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch. Dave, yeah. I'm really enjoying it. It's so difficult to read. Like, it's never straightforward. It's a very convoluted kind of way of telling a story. And so you just have to put so much mental energy into trying to understand it. Because it's convoluted and because it's kind of slow, you have to read a huge chunk of it to fully understand. So every time I sit down to read it, I'm like, God damn it, I have to like commit so much, a full couple chapters to even have a sense of what's happening. Yeah, it's just too much work. So I put it down, but I will at some point try to finish it. So there you have it, all the books I DNF'd that I remember. Let me know what books you've DNF'd, or like let me know how you feel about DNFing, or let me know what contributes to you DNFing, or whatever you want. Just talk to me about DNFs, and I will see you next time. Bye!